The controversy about Imane Khelif fighting in the Olympics has gone back and forth, and it is extremely confusing in that there have been no reports that have spoken to Imane Khelif, that have spoken to officials from the IBA or the IOC, and no one outside of statements has actually come on the record to talk about what exactly is going on with Imane Khelif. So in researching this, because it definitely seems like there's more to the story than just a transgendered woman fighting against biological women, it's more complex than that. There is a lot of back and forth. A lot of people say that it's a transgender woman, and then there's a lot of people that say that Imane was born as a woman, and that just has elevated testosterone levels. And both seem to be not true, or just a small portion of the story. So I've gathered together documents from the IOC and the IBA in their response to this. First, I'll read the IBA's response to allowing Khelif to fight in the Olympics against other women. So this is the IBA's response. IBA reaffirms the position and removal of boxers from all events, aims to protect female boxers, and condemns both the International Olympic Committee and the World Boxing for allowing ineligible athletes to compete. Further, IBA statement made yesterday evening regarding the removal of ineligible athletes from all IBA female competitions. We reiterate our stance and firm position. IBA remains committed in ensuring competitive fairness in all of our events. We absolutely condemn the inconsistencies in eligibility to compete in boxing competition held in the Paris Olympics Games 2024. To reiterate, both Imane Khelif and Lin Yi Tang post-testing did not meet required eligibility criteria to compete within female category of our respective events. The decision made by IBA on 24th March 2023 was subsequently ratified by the IBA Board of Directors on 25th March 2023. The official record of this decision can be accessed on IBA website. Here, IBA Board of Directors meeting minutes. The urgent nature of this decision was justified as the safety of our boxers is our top priority. The disqualification was based on two trustworthy tests conducted on both athletes in two independent laboratories as follows. Tests performed during IBA Women's Boxing Championship in Istanbul 2022. Tests performed during IBA Women's World Boxing Championship New Delhi 2023. For clarification, Lin Yi Ping did not appeal the IBA's decision to the Court of Arbitration for Sports, CAS, thus rendering the decision legally binding. Imane Khelif initially appealed the decision to CAS, but withdrew the appeal during the process, also making the IBA decision legally binding. Further to the decisions made above and knowingly allowing Imane Khelif to compete, World Boxing, whose sole purpose of existence is to support Olympic movement, has equally endorsed and reinforced ineligible athletes to compete in their very own recently announced events. Alarmingly, the World Boxing 2024 USA Boxing International Invitational Tournament saw Khelif compete in the finals on the 16th April 2024, with a further outing that took place during Eindhoven Boxing Cup, supported by World Boxing, that took place on 18th May 2024. We absolutely do not understand why any organization would put a boxer at risk with what could bring a potential serious injury within the field of play. The main role of the referee in the ring is to manage the boxer's safety at all times. How is it reasonably practicable when a boxer fails to meet the eligibility requirement to compete? IBA will never support any boxing bouts between the genders, as the organization puts the safety and well-being of our athletes first. We are protecting our women and their rights to compete in the ring against equal rivals, and we will defend and support them in all instances. Their hopes and dreams must never be taken away by organizations unwilling to do the right thing under difficult circumstances. The IBA stands by its position and will continue to support all athletes within the spirit of the rules. That is from the IBA. This was the response to the controversy by the IOC. Every person has a right to practice sports without discrimination. All athletes participating in the boxing tournament of the Olympic Games Paris 2024 comply with the competition's eligibility and entry regulations, as well as all applicable medical regulations set by Paris 2024 Boxing Unite, PBU. Please find all applicable rules here. As with previous Olympic boxing competitions, the gender and age of the athletes are based on their passports. These rules also apply during the qualification period, including the boxing tournaments of the 2023 European Games, Asian Games, Pan American Games, and Pacific Games, and ad hoc 2023 African qualifying tournament in Dakar, SEN, and 2 world qualifying tournaments held in Buenos Aires, Italy, and Bangkok, Thailand in 2024, which involved a total of 1,471 different boxers from 172 National Olympic Committees, NOCs, the boxing refugee team, and the invitational neutral athletes, and featured over 2,000 qualification bouts. The PBU used the Tokyo 2020 boxing rules as a baseline to develop its regulation for Paris 2024. This was to minimize the impact of athletes' preparation and guarantee consistency between Olympic Games. These Tokyo 2020 rules were based on post-Rio 2016 rules, which were in place before the suspension of boxing's International Federation by the IOC in 2019 and the subsequent withdrawal of its recognition in 2023. We have seen in reports misleading information about 2 female athletes competing at the Olympic Games Paris 2024. The 2 athletes have been competing in international boxing competitions for many years in the women's category, including the Olympic Games Tokyo in 2020. International Boxing Association, IBA, World Championships, and IBA-sanctioned tournaments. These 2 athletes were the victims of a sudden and arbitrary decision by the IBA towards the end of the IBA World Championships in 2023. They were suddenly disqualified without any due process. According to the IBA minutes available on their website, this decision was initially taken solely by the IBA Secretary General and CEO. The IBA board only ratified it afterwards and only subsequently requested that a procedure to follow in similar cases in the future be established and reflected in the IBA regulations. The minutes also say that the IBA should establish a clear procedure on gender testing. The current aggression against these 2 athletes is based entirely on arbitrary decision, which was taken without any proper procedures, especially considering that these athletes had been competing in top-level competitions for many years. Such an approach is contrary to good governance. Eligibility rules should not be changed during ongoing competitions, and any rule change must follow appropriate processes and should be based on scientific evidence. The IOC is committed to protecting the human rights of all athletes participating in the Olympic Games as per Olympic Charter, the IOC Code of Ethics, the IOC Strategic Framework on Human Rights, the IOC, is saddened by the abuse that the two athletes are currently receiving. And the IBA recognition was withdrawn by the IOC in 2023 following its suspension in 2019. The withdrawal of recognition was confirmed by the Court of Arbitration for Sports, CAS. See the IOC statement following the ruling. The IOC has made it clear that it needs National Boxing Federation to reach a consensus around new international federation in order for boxing to be included on sports program of the Olympic Games LA 28. Clearly, both organizations are saying two different things. The IOC is saying that there was no testing, that it was the decision by the head of the IBA. The IBA is saying that they did tested to see their chromosomal makeup, that both athletes were XY, which is male biologically, and XX is female. So both athletes were biologically tested and failed because they not only had elevated testosterone, but they had XY. So you have two organizations bickering, arguing back and forth, both saying completely different things. I do agree with the IOC when it comes to the fact that changing rules mid-games is poor leadership. You should not be changing the rules in the middle of the competition. Khelif was set to fight in the gold medal bout and was withdrawn. The test results came in. Again, it's unclear if the test results came in. The IOC says they didn't. There was no test done. The IBA says there was. Either way, these tests should have been done and the results should have been distributed before the competition, because that means that if they are biological men XY and have that advantage that a man would have over a woman, meaning size, strength, bone density, speed, power, everything, every advantage that a man has, if these women, according to reports, they have a genetic disorder, DSD, both women were raised female, despite the fact that they had XY chromosomes. And so subsequently their passports show that they're female. And that is the standard in which the IOC bases female or male. Now, you can argue that that doesn't make sense in 2024 because of all the gender issues that we currently have in our society, that there needs to be, in addition to all the drug testing, the possibility of doing chromosome testing and taking terminology out of it, just saying that XY versus XX is inadmissible when it comes to sports, because clearly what used to be male-female standards for all of humanity has now changed, and we have a lot of different genders. And because of this, there's confusion by governing bodies, specifically governing bodies in sports. There needs to be, because of the massive difference between men and women, we created separate leagues so that men and women can compete fairly against each other and not have men playing women in sports. So this is from Don Lusri. This is what he put in his Twitter's post. Breaking news. Imane Khelif, the Algerian boxer that went viral at the World Olympics, was born a woman. She was banned at the World Championships because of an unfair advantage her genetic disorder, DSD, gives her. Transgender surgeries are outlawed in Algeria. It has also been verified that her passport identifies her as female. In March 2023, Khelif was disqualified for failing to meet eligibility criteria shortly before her gold medal bout at the 2023 IBA Women's World Boxing Championship. The Algerian Olympic Committee said that Khelif was disqualified for medical reasons. It was later reported that the disqualification was due to high levels of testosterone. According to the International Boxing Association president, Umar Kermelov, DNA testing of Khelif and other athletes proved they had XY chromosomes and were thus excluded from the sports events. There is speculation that Khelif may not be transgender, but has a disorder of sex development, DSD, which causes some females to have XY chromosomes and blood testosterone levels typical of a male. If she couldn't qualify at the World Championships, I don't believe she should in the World Olympics, but she isn't a man. As for Angelina Karina, she was robbed, but she has also been crying since 2021. So Don Lustre seems to be the most reasonable post that I've read. I know that there's a lot of people in boxing removing their posts, now questioning their initial jump at this controversy. And as more information comes out, we will all adjust our opinions, hopefully with facts. We have two organizations, both saying different things. It is a black mark on both of them because the safety of the fighter should be the priority, period. There needs to be classifications for people such as Khelif so that they can compete in fair competitions. We don't allow athletes that take steroids to compete against natural athletes. It is banned. If they have a disorder that gives them a substantial advantage like an anabolic steroid would, that they grew up as females, yet they have XY chromosomes that develop their bone density, that develop their speed, their strength, everything that a man has in terms of physical advantages over a woman, then there needs to be something in place to protect the female athletes, because we wouldn't allow steroid athletes to compete against natural athletes. We need protection for those women, period. This is a brutal sport. Fighters die every year, unfortunately, or they have brain damage from the sport. We don't need the regulating bodies to be arguing back and forth. We need them to solve the problem. It is women's lives on the line when they step in there and take blows to the head, blows to the body. It is every fighter that steps in the ring leaves a part of them in that ring because of the damage that they take. I love the sport of boxing. I love the athletes who are absolutely amazing in their skill sets. To me, it's a beautiful thing to watch. And I advocate for the athletes. And that even means Khelif. If she grew up as a woman and has a disorder that allows her to have an XY chromosome that gives her that advantage, then let's find a category to put her in. If her physical advantages are so great that she is able to dominate in her sport. Now, she's had 9 losses, but her win percentage is pretty high. So she's obviously a successful boxer. She's well schooled. She looks like she has good fundamentals from what I've seen of her fights. If it is true that she has this disorder, again, because we don't have clarification from the bodies, from the governing bodies, and no one has stepped to the podium, and no one has provided tests, and the athletes have not stepped forward to talk about their disorders, and the press has not interviewed them to give us the information so we can base our opinions off of. I mean, this whole situation has blown up because of misinformation. And who is responsible to distribute that information? The governing bodies and our media. Our media is there to investigate these things. Why haven't our media actually, I've seen plenty of interviews, but no one's actually gone further and said, okay, does she have XY chromosomes? Where is the IOC? Where is the IBA? Why aren't they speaking to us directly? Where's the representatives showing us the test that this is true so that we can have full clarification? I empathize with both sides of the argument because it's so disorganized in terms of the information distributed to us. So IOC, IBA need to get their shit together and help the public, because we're the customers, right? We're the paying public. We watch these sports. We participate as fans in these sports, and we want to know what is going on. So IOC, IBA, please, somebody step forward and let us know with facts so that we can make a decision as fans if we want to watch these sports or not, if we want to participate by being fans in this. Because it is at this point, it's a controversy that boxing doesn't need. Boxing has been marred in controversy for decades now. We're trying to build and proliferate the sport, and this doesn't help it. And the blame goes on both these organizations for not clarifying this. So both of them, please step up and give us facts so that we can know unequivocally what is going on and whether or not these athletes should be participating at the level that they are because of the disorder they have, if they have an advantage, and if it is equivalent to taking an anabolic steroid, then the question is, should they be allowed to participate? These are questions that should have been answered long before these competitions. And it is a shame that they are taking the blunt of the anger and the outrage because these organizations have failed. Fix your organizations so that the sport of boxing can move on from this controversy and establish itself as the great sport that it is.